Today we're going to discuss your steroid hormones. The precursor of your steroid hormones is your cholesterol. We have your adrenal glands, particularly your adrenal cortex, which secretes your glucocorticoids and your mineralocorticoids. Now, your glucocorticoid, example of which is cortisol, and for your mineralocorticoids, it is your aldosterone. Another organ are your gonads, which produces your sex hormones. Now we have your androgens. The major androgen is your testosterone. And then we also have your estrogens, as well as your progestins. Now let's talk about your aldosterone. Okay. Your aldosterone is produced by your adrenal cortex, and it is released by a response to increasing amounts of angiotensin II, and it is also produced when there is an increase in potassium, decreased in sodium in the blood, and it increases. The action of aldosterone is to increase sodium reuptake in the kidneys. Sodium reuptake in the kidneys, in the sweat glands and salivary glands. So the net effect is increased in intracellular fluid and eventually increased in BP. So your aldosterone is part of the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system. The next hormone is your cortisol. So it is also released by your adrenal cortex, and it is known as your stress hormone. Okay. Now, later on, we'll discuss how your cortisol is being produced, or the biosynthesis of your cortisol. Next, let's talk about your sex hormones. So, your androgen, testosterone, is produced by your Leydig cells as well as the ovaries. So this is in response to your luteinizing hormone, and testosterone is responsible for the production of sperm proteins in your Sertoli cells. And they are also, your testosterone is also responsible for the secondary sexual characteristics development. Next, we have your estradiol, which is an estrogen. Your estrogen is produced in the ovarian follicle as well as in the corpus luteum. Now, your estrogen prepares your uterine endometrium for implantation of fertilized ovum. Prepare the endometrium for implantation of the fertilized ovum. Okay, now your estradiol or your estrogen is secreted or is produced in response to the follicle stimulating hormone. Now the next is your progesterone. Now progesterone is produced in response to the luteinizing hormone, and it is also produced in the corpus luteum. So together with your estrogen, it also prepares the uterine endometrium for implantation of the fertilized ovum. Now your steroid hormones are carried in the blood by associating themselves with the serum albumin. So the serum albumin is the non-specific transporter of your steroid hormones. Now, the biosynthesis of your steroid hormones is again dependent to cholesterol. So siya yung precursor. Now, your cholesterol, gaya ng napag-usapan natin from last time, comes from your acetyl-CoA. They may also come from the intracellular cholesterol ester pool. And they may also be coming from the internalized lipoproteins. Now, let's talk about the biosynthesis of your steroid hormones. So, as what we've already mentioned, the precursor molecule is cholesterol. And the rate-limiting step in the production of your steroidal hormones is the conversion of your cholesterol into pregnenolone. So, the conversion of cholesterol to pregnenolone is catalyzed by the enzyme desmolase, also known as your CYP450 side chain cleavage enzyme. Now, from pregnenolone, it can be converted into progesterone by the action of 3-beta hydroxy steroid dehydrogenase. Now, actually, lahat ng enzymes involved in the biotransformation or biosynthesis of the different steroidal hormones belong to the CYP450 family, except ito, yung 3-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase. Now, from progesterone, ayan, pwede na siyang ma-convert into your aldosterone. Ayan. And then, your progesterone is also the precursor of cortisol. Now, progesterone can be converted into androstenedione, which is a weak androgen produced by the adrenal cortex. Your androstenedione is the precursor of estrone, which is an estrogen. And your androstenedione is also the precursor for testosterone. Eventually, your testosterone is converted into estradiol by the aromatase enzyme. Aromatase also belongs to the CYP450 family. Now, ito, yung inyong aldosterone and cortisol, these are C21 carbon units. Your estrone is C18, as well as your estradiol, that's also C18. Whereas your testosterone, ayan, and also your androstenedione, ito, that's your C19 units. Okay. Now, your pregnenolone can also be converted into DHEA. So, your DHEA is dehydroepiandrosterone. Dehydroepiandrosterone. Okay. Which can eventually be converted into androstenedione. Ayan. So, ayan yung simplified na biosynthesis ng steroid hormones natin. Now, sige, tignan natin kung saang site ba sila napoproduce. Sa adrenal cortex, meron tayong mnemonics na GFR. And then salt, sugar, sex. It gets sweeter as you go deeper. So GFR stands for the layers of the adrenal cortex. Okay? So dito sa taas, that's your glomerulosa. Zona glomerulosa. And then yung pangalawang layer is your zona fasciculata. And then yung pinaka-loob, ayan, is your zona reticularis. Okay? So sa zona glomerulosa, that's where your salt, or yung may kinalaman sa salt, so ano yun, that's your mineralocorticoid, so that's your aldosterone. Whereas in zona fasciculata, sugar, so that's your cortisol, glucocorticoid, and then reticularis, sex, so that's where your androstenedione is produced. Okay? Now, ayan yung different hormones, no, sa adrenal glands. Now, your testosterone is produced by your Leydig cells. Okay? Now, yung inyo namang estrogen and progesterone, both of which are produced by your ovaries. Now, meron tayong iba't ibang parts of the ovaries, no? So, yung granulosa cells, ayan, so sa ovaries, yung granulosa cells, they are responsible for the production of estrogens. And again, they are, yung estrogens ninyo ay napoproduce because of the action of the hormone, follicle stimulating hormone. Ayan. And then you also have your thecal and stromal cells. Thecal and stromal cells, which produce naman the androgens. And lastly, you have the corpus luteum, which produces primarily your progesterone. Okay? So, yan yung synthesis ng ating different na steroidal hormones. Now, yung sa cortisol naman, sige, balikan natin. Now, with cortisol, yung synthesis niya, nagsistart siya in the inner mitochondrial membrane. Tapos, ilalabas mo siya ng cytosol papunta ng smooth endoplasmic reticulum. And then, yung completion ng synthesis, ayan, back to the inner mitochondrial membrane.